Are you wasting 5 hours every single night? You leave work with good intentions, but by 10 p.m., you've done nothing meaningful. You scrolled, snacked, and stared at a screen. The issue isn't that you're lazy, it's that you're missing a system. High performers use a method called the 90-minute evening block. It's 3 structured phases: recovery, growth, and connection, each designed to rebuild energy, compound skills that increase your earning potential, and strengthen relationships that expand your professional network. They don't hope for a productive evening. They schedule it using reverse planning, starting with bedtime and working backward. This isn't about adding more to your plate. It's about replacing vague intentions with mandatory progress. But before you can implement this system, you need to understand the one mistake that's sabotaging your mornings. Chapter 1. The Evening Energy Trap. What if the reason you're exhausted every morning isn't because you worked too hard yesterday, but because you recovered wrong last night? The core mistake is treating recovery as passive consumption instead of active energy rebuilding. You finish your workday, and you do what everyone does. You sit on the couch. You open social media and scroll through content you won't remember in an hour. You turn on a show you've seen before, or one you don't care about. You grab snacks you don't actually want. This feels like rest because you're not working, but your body and brain are operating in a completely different mode than actual recovery. This passive consumption drains more energy than it restores. Your brain never transitions out of work mode. It stays in a holding pattern, processing information without purpose. Every notification pulls your attention. Every content choice creates a micro-decision. These are energy vampires. They look harmless, but they're quietly depleting the reserves you need for tomorrow. You're sitting still, but your mind is running at partial capacity with no clear direction. The result is simple. You wake up tired. You didn't truly recover, so your energy reserves stayed depleted. You start the next day already behind, and the pattern repeats. You blame the workload, but the workload isn't the issue. The recovery process is broken. You're trying to recharge a battery by leaving it plugged into a faulty outlet. The connection looks right, but no energy transfer happens. The one evening mistake sabotaging your next day is confusing passive consumption with active recovery. Passive consumption is what happens when you let default behaviors fill your time. Active recovery is deliberate action designed to rebuild your physical and mental reserves. It's movement, even light movement, that helps discharge the day's accumulated tension. It's intentional rest where you're not processing external stimuli. It's structured wind-down rituals that create a clear transition between work mode and sleep mode. One practical example is a shutdown ritual. Stand up, take 3 deep breaths, and physically close your laptop. This simple sequence signals completion and begins the transition. Think of your body like a workspace. Passive consumption is leaving all your tools scattered across the desk at the end of the day. Active recovery is putting each tool back in its place so you can start fresh tomorrow. The tools are the same, but one approach leaves you ready to perform, and the other leaves you searching for what you need. Active recovery creates order. It tells your system that the workday is complete and a different phase has begun. High performers understand that recovery is not collapse, it's construction. You don't recover by doing nothing. You recover by doing the right things in the right sequence. They schedule recovery the same way they schedule meetings or workouts because they recognize it as a performance input, not a reward for good behavior. They move their bodies to release tension. They create environments that support rest instead of stimulation. They build routines that signal closure so their minds stop running background processes. This reframe is the foundation for everything that follows. Once you see recovery as active, you can schedule it like any other priority. It stops being something that happens if you have time and becomes something you protect, because it determines whether you have energy tomorrow. The shift from passive to active recovery is the difference between hoping you'll feel better and engineering the conditions that guarantee it. But knowing you need active recovery isn't enough. You need a planning method that ensures it actually happens. Passive recovery is basically the "I rested because I was horizontal" method. Works about as well as a chocolate teapot. Chapter 2. Reverse scheduling. Building your evening backward. Your evening doesn't start when you leave work. It starts when you decide what time you're going to sleep. This is the leverage point most people miss, and it's the foundation of reverse scheduling. Reverse scheduling is the planning method that guarantees productive evenings instead of hoping for them. Traditional planning moves forward from the end of the workday. You clock out at 5 or 6 and you think about what you might do with the hours ahead. Maybe you'll exercise, maybe you'll read, maybe you'll work on that side project. This forward approach creates vague intentions that rarely materialize because you have no clear endpoint and no mandatory commitments. Forward planning leads to wasted hours because it operates on a false assumption. It assumes you have unlimited evening time, so you tell yourself you'll get to the high-value activities later. You'll scroll for just a few minutes first. You'll watch one episode and then start the productive part of your evening. But later never arrives. The high-value activities get pushed further back until it's too late to start them and you default to more passive consumption. You had good intentions, but the structure wasn't there to enforce them. Here's what changes the pattern. Your evening affects your morning more than your morning affects your evening. The way you spend the hours between work and sleep determines whether you wake up energized or depleted. This is why reverse scheduling works. It protects the activities that rebuild your energy and compound your skills by scheduling them first, not last. Start with your target bedtime. If you need to wake at 6 and you need 7 hours of sleep, your bedtime is 11. That's your evening end point, and it's non-negotiable. Now work backward from that anchor point. Subtract your sleep duration, and you have a hard boundary. This single shift changes everything because you now see exactly how much time you actually have. Block your final hour for wind down. This is your transition period where screens go off, lights dim, and you signal to your body that rest is approaching. The 90 minutes before that is your connection block for relationship investment, quality conversations, or intentional social engagement. The 90 minutes before that is your growth block for skill building, reading, courses, or side projects. The first 90 minutes after work is your recovery block for active recovery through movement, a real meal, or a shutdown ritual. The specific times will vary based on your schedule, but the sequence stays the same. Reverse scheduling guarantees productive evenings by turning your intentions into mandatory, time-boxed commitments. When you schedule backward from bedtime, each activity has a specific start time and a specific duration. There's no room for the "I'll do it later" mentality because you can see on your schedule that later doesn't exist. The time is allocated or it isn't. This method forces prioritization because the visual representation of your evening shows you the limits of what's possible. The method eliminates the illusion of unlimited time. Most people operate as if their evening stretches indefinitely, which creates the psychological space for procrastination. When you map out your evening in reverse, you see that you have a finite window between work and bedtime. Once you subtract wind down, you have 3 distinct blocks. Each minute now carries weight because you understand the scarcity of the resource. When you schedule backward from bedtime, you protect your highest value activities first and fill the gaps with lower priority tasks. Traditional planning does the opposite. It fills the early evening with low-value activities and hopes there's time left over for what matters. Reverse scheduling ensures that growth and connection get their allocated time because they're already blocked on your calendar. If something lower priority needs to fit in, it has to work around the protected blocks or it doesn't happen at all. The shift from forward to reverse planning is the difference between hoping for progress and engineering it into your day. Hope is not a strategy, structure is. But structure without content is just empty boxes on a calendar. The 3 blocks you just mapped need specific functions that transform scattered evenings into compounding growth. Reverse scheduling is basically time travel, except you don't need a DeLorean or risk punching your past self. Chapter 3. The 3 90-minute blocks that compound your life. Each block serves a distinct purpose, and the sequence matters more than most people realize. Block 1 is recovery. This is your first 90 minutes after work. This is active recovery, not passive.
Collapse. You're doing a shutdown ritual where you take 3 deep breaths and physically close your laptop to signal the workday is over. You're doing movement, snacking, eating a real meal, changing your clothes, or taking a short walk. The goal is energy restoration, not entertainment. This block prepares your mind and body for what comes next. You avoid decision-making and planning during this window because the objective is recharge. This block discharges the stress built up during your workday and creates separation between work mode and evening mode. Block 2 is growth. This is your second 90 minutes dedicated to skill building. You're reading, taking online courses, working on hobbies, practicing a craft, or developing a side project. This block compounds your earning potential and expertise over time. Each session adds to your capabilities and increases your market value. You're learning something that enhances what you can deliver, professionally or personally. This isn't passive consumption of random content. This is deliberate skill acquisition with a clear direction. You're investing in yourself in a way that creates returns months and years from. Now, most people skip this block entirely because they're still drained from passive recovery in Block 1, is why the sequence matters. If you spent the first 90 minutes scrolling and snacking, you don't have the mental bandwidth for focused learning. Your brain is still in that low-grade stress state from earlier, processing fragments of information with no clear purpose. The recovery block sets up the growth block by creating the energy foundation you need to focus and retain new information. Without proper recovery first, growth activities feel like work instead of investment. Block 3 is connection. This is your final 90 minutes focused on relationship investment, deep conversations with your partner, quality time with family where you're fully present, intentional social engagement where you're building or maintaining meaningful relationships. This block compounds your social capital and emotional resilience. The relationships you invest in during this window provide support, opportunity, and perspective that extend far beyond the immediate interaction. You're strengthening bonds that matter, and those bonds become resources you can draw on when challenges arise. These 3 90-minute blocks transform evenings from downtime into growth time by structuring recovery, skill building, and relationships as mandatory phases. Each block has a start time and an end time. Each block has a clear objective. This removes the ambiguity that kills productivity in most evenings. You're not wondering what you should do or hoping you'll feel motivated. The structure tells you exactly what happens when the 90-minute duration aligns with natural focus cycles. Your brain operates in periods of heightened alertness, followed by rest. By matching your evening structure to these cycles, you work with your biology instead of against it. Each block is long enough to accomplish meaningful work, but short enough to maintain focus without burnout. The specific times will vary based on your schedule. If you finish work at 5 o'clock, your recovery block might run from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. If you finish at 6 o'clock, it shifts an hour later. The principle stays the same regardless of when you start. You're reverse scheduling from your bedtime and allocating 3 distinct phases. When you implement this system, you're not adding more to your plate. You're replacing scattered low-value activities with focused high-return investments. The time was already there. You were already spending those hours. Now you're directing them toward outcomes that compound instead of activities that evaporate. The question isn't whether you have time. The question is whether you're ready to structure it. If willpower alone could fix evenings, we'd all have 6-pack abs, a novel published, and an email inbox with 0 unread messages. If you'll be using this, let me know in the comments which block you're starting with. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video on why you must say no and set boundaries, because that's where everything really changes.